Hello everyone and welcome to Storm Center edition of News Center Now. Today we're talking about the weather latest, that's what everybody's talking about, and coastal flooding, how it's really taking a toll on homes and businesses.
Also, a lot of people live on the islands. What's it like to be one of those people on the water? Christina Rex takes a look.
And we're talking with Central Maine Power's now former CEO. She's looking back on her 30-year career with the company. Very timely.
This is News Center Now. This snowstorm is smashing into down East Maine. The hurricane force winds are staying out to sea, but that means the coastal towns are seeing big waves and angry oceans. This was the scene in York County where the water was splashing right onto Wells Beach.
And the Portland area saw significant flooding on the roadways, making snowy roads even more difficult to navigate. And hello, good evening everyone. I'm Lindsay Mills.
And I'm Lee Goldberg. It's everybody's favorite word, right? Bombogenesis. It is smashing into our state. It has arrived onto our shores, and we are in storm center mode today.
That's right. And if you happen to lose power at your home or wherever you're staying tonight, remember you can always watch us on Facebook Live at News Center Maine.
All right, we've got crews all across the state right now getting ready to tell you what is going on, but we're going to start with Keith Carson, who is, it looks like he's in the middle of some other planet in another country. He's actually
looks like Mars,
in Rockport with the latest. What's going on, Keith?
Hey, yeah, Pat called it Neptune. I think Mars or Neptune works. It is a cold and windy night here in Rockport, and the wind gusts have certainly been increasing. I was just saying a few minutes ago about how we're building the wind gusts more frequently. You know, they're ramping up here to around 50 miles an hour, and then they're settling, but they're settling less frequently now than they did about an hour and a half ago. My experience in windstorms is that this is what happens. You get a few gusts, and then the gusts build to a crescendo, and then things settle down after that. So it could be looking at that crescendo coming here again in the next hour and a half. We're staying below the magic number thus far, though, which is about 60 miles an hour in most spots when you start talking about more power outages, particularly from a tested wind direction like northeast. So if we pop over 60 and 65, then we have more problems. At this rate here, it's certainly cold and it's reducing visibility, but it's not going to do a ton of damage. And Todd, you know, one thing that strikes me is how different a wind speed of 50 feels in October as opposed to the beginning of January. It's a little chillier this time of the year.
Just slightly colder, right? Actually, I was just looking at the wind chills, and yeah, they're down around 5 degrees above zero right now. Even though the temperature, believe it or not, outside is close to 30 right now. One of the warmest days we've had in over a week. We haven't been this warm in a while. Even yesterday was colder. All right, snowfall totals. We've got a foot in Hollis now. That's the first town I've seen hit a foot. Freeport's not too far behind, and neither is Portland. Portland's up around 10 inches already. Some eastern Maine towns, East Machias 8, Prospect Harbor 7.5, and the Queen City, Bangor, up to 7, where we're getting dry slotted right now. So things are going to be quiet for a little while longer, but look at this next wave moving in, and some insane bands showing up across the interior of Maine, southern and western areas too, and this band extends back to the west into Vermont. So we got a little while before it tapers off. In fact, we're going to see the snow continue right up through the evening hours and up to about midnight-ish, and I think on average that's when it'll start to end. The snow bands weaken, they fall apart. The winds still whip around, so it's going to be blowing and drifting all over the place. And tomorrow, boy, our temperatures are going to be frigid. They're going to be falling through the day, and even though it won't be snowing, the wind is still going to be blowing snow around off of rooftops. You know, if you're driving along an open area like a field or a farmland or something like that, snow is going to blow up on the roadway too. So it's going to be a long stretch here with the cold to follow this storm into the weekend.
All right, well, it's been a long day for your team, so keep...
Yes.
We're hanging in. We're hanging in and fighting back a little bit.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
so there are homes and businesses in downtown Portland that are just getting damaged by all kinds of flooding from the astronomical high tides.
That's right. Chris Costa has been on Portland's waterfront all day long monitoring the flooding down there. Chris, what's the latest?
Hey, Lee and Lindsay. Obviously, things have receded quite a bit now since 12:26 this afternoon. That was the peak high tide of that astronomical high tide. The lowest of low tide, if you will, is at 6:51 p.m. And obviously, right around 5 o'clock, that water has much receded from where it was. But the people who live around there and who have lived in Portland for decades and decades said, hey, we're used to seeing this flooding, but this is the highest we've ever seen it. And now the people who live in those homes are trying to get inside and get warm. Flooding on Portland's waterfront is nothing new during a storm, but the astronomical high tide?
We've never seen anything like this. This is crazy.
Icy waters preventing Herb Ivy from getting to his home down on the pier.
So concerns are the lobby is flooded, and the building, maybe the elevator shaft. My car is in there somewhere. So I don't think I'm going home anytime soon.
Bystanders recognize how unusual and how damaging this flooding is.
Losing property and stuff that's in the buildings. Yeah, it's like Jay's Oyster. I think every year they lose property.
On the other side of Casco Bay, the high tide raising the landing platform on Peaks Island.
Back up a little bit.
Ferry crews making adjustments to help cars get off the boat. Back on the mainland, dozens of plow drivers and extra firefighters kept the streets safe as flooding spread to other parts of the city. But there was nothing crews could do to prevent Mother Nature from lifting the seas.
I haven't. I'm hearing from my kids and my wife who are in the house, and they're sending me pictures from that end. And so they're safe. It's warm. Power's on. They're fine. They're safe, and that's the main thing.
So here's what we're seeing for road conditions. Check out this wind. This is a trash bag. You guys had talked about those gusts the meteorologist had. This is just a trash bag blown in the wind right now. What we'd seen as far as the road conditions are concerned, lots of cars, especially those smaller cars, really struggling to come up High Street with the snow that's on the roads, and especially starting from a stop, trying to turn a corner. They've really been skidding out. The wheels have been spinning and spinning. So that's kind of an update on the road conditions here in downtown Portland. And again, thanks to my handy trash bag here, you can see just how strong those wind gusts are and the snow flying across the camera. So yeah, it's hectic out here, guys. Try to stay off the roads if you can. Lee and Lindsay, back to you.
Nothing but the best scientific tools for Coco. The
Absolutely.
trash bag in the wind. All right, well done, sir. Those of you joining us on Facebook, you might have noticed a pretty big change today.
That's right. WLBZ2 and WCSH6 are now one Facebook page, News Center Maine. And Lee, Digital Diva, is that what we call Katie?
She is the Digital Diva. You've learned quickly.
Yes.
I
love it.
That's me. Thanks, Lindsay. So yeah, as they say, new year, new us, right? So you've heard us say News Center Maine. We've seen these changes online. Big one today, Facebook. As Lindsay said, our two News Center pages, WCSH6 and WLBZ, have merged into one. So right now it's just one big party at this one page, News Center Maine. So the good news is, if you have already liked WCSH6 or LBZ2 on our Facebook, you don't have to do anything. You're still following us. Same awesome team delivering the same great content. The only thing that's changed is the name, and we're finally on one page. But if you haven't liked us, now is a really good time to like News Center Maine on Facebook, especially for days like today with the blizzard and all that. You want all of those updates, really important. So just search for News Center Maine and you'll see our fancy new logo pop up. But now our Twitter handle will also be changing to News Center Maine. The apps will be changing. Our website will also be changing to News Center Maine. All of these changes coming out over the next couple of weeks. It's a lot of information, we know that, but I'm going to keep on reminding you guys and making sure I drill this into your head like a broken record player. It'll be like an annoying song that I can't get out of your head, so. Lee and Lindsay.
Oh, there she is. Digital Diva getting it done.
Yeah, Katie, no worries. Thanks for breaking it all down for us. Pretty easy to understand. All right, well, most of us, when it's like this outside, we don't want to go outside, let alone on the water.
It makes for a wild boat ride sometimes.
But people on the Casco Bay Islands know how to handle the ferries during a blizzard. That story coming up.
And some people will be losing power tonight, looking for help in Maine's warming shelters. We'll have more on that coming up after the break.
I run in all the weather, so it's not that big of a deal.
It might be the fastest way to get around in this weather, cross-country skiing. We saw this woman near Bat Cove in Portland, definitely getting points for creativity.
Good work out there.
Oh, yeah, well, I was tired watching. Most of us held on to power and heat throughout most of the day, but the lights are definitely starting to go out now. Let's take a look at the current outages across our state.
That's right. Central Maine Power reporting more than 4,000, nearly 5,000 households without power. Emera Maine is still doing pretty well with less than 200 outages at this time, but it's going to be a really long night for some Mainers if they don't get power back soon.
Yeah, it's obviously very scary, potentially at least. Tennyson Coleman went to a warming shelter in Bangor today where people are trying to obviously stay warm. Hey, Tennyson.
Hey guys, I'm just going to say it feels like I'm walking in a winter wonderland. It feels like I'm in a snow globe. Hey, and I said it before and I'll say it again. It's a cold, hot mess out here. We are getting hit hard by this storm and there is no sign of letting up. City offices were closed today at noon. Schools were closed. I talked to Bangor City Manager Catherine Conlow today and she said that decision was made based on the hazards this storm poses. Roads are already hard to drive on. I saw people, as well as myself, slipping and sliding through intersections, making it hard to get up hills, and some people are already without power. That's why the city has set up a warming center at the Bangor Park and Recreation Center. Earlier, I talked to a man who was heading home before the storm got even worse.
My wife works here in City Hall. She's a city clerk. I'm just in here today to pick her up from work. A day like this, people don't need to be out on the road. You know, it's hazardous. The less people on the road, the less chances of an accident.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely don't want to see any accidents. Government officials have said if you don't need to be on the road, stay off the roads. Now, back to the warming centers. There is a warming center here in Bangor at the Bangor Park and Rec Center. I mentioned that is open until 7 p.m., but the fire stations and the police department are open all night. And I actually want to correct myself. It's 9 p.m. for the Bangor Rec Center. Guys, back to you.
All right, Tennyson, enjoy the break in the snow that we can see right there because it's coming back. All right, one of you asked us on Facebook yesterday, do the Casco Bay ferries still run during a snowstorm? We will get you that answer coming up in just a little bit.
And there is light at the end of the tunnel. The snow tunnel will tell you when this snow will finally end and what's coming our way for the rest of the week in the full forecast. Hey, Jess. Down east was the forecasted bullseye region for the storm. The seas were angry this morning in Bar Harbor. But as the morning went on and the snow moved in, we couldn't even see anything from our tower cameras in the region. Some of you probably saw a similar sight when you looked out the window. This was declared a blizzard for us later this afternoon, meaning whiteout conditions for 3 hours.
All right, now remember, a big part of our show and something we talk a lot about is how you can ask us questions and we'll get you the answers. Just use the hashtag AskNow. Well, we got a question last night from Nancy who reached out to us on Facebook. What happens with the island ferries in Casco Bay in storms like this? Do they continue?
So Christina Rex set out to find out.
Lee and Lindsay, the answer is yes, the ferry still runs even in conditions like this. They tell us they only close down for 2 or 3 rides a winter, and the only challenge today is the high tide and some of the ice over the top of the ocean.
It's not a hassle. It's fun.
Peaks Island residents did everything in their power to make it a normal day despite the blizzard.
Trying to go to work this morning, but this is about as far as I got.
From construction to news reporting to scallop fishing, getting work done seemed like a near impossibility.
The boat, the rocks, and the scallops all go washing across the deck from side to side, so you don't get much done.
While business on land may be closed or slow at best, these islanders were able to make it to and from home without a problem.
Some parts of the ferry ride have been rather calm and pleasant. Other parts have been windy and blowing snow like this. Take a look at the whiteout conditions. You can see the ice along the top of the water, but luckily, all of the passengers are able to sit inside the cozy warm cabins on their ride.
It wasn't the snow or even the wind that came as a surprise today, but rather what lay on top of the water.
Sometimes there's no option, especially at night.
It makes for a wild boat ride sometimes.
Once the boat pushed through the layer of ice, it was as smooth sailing as you can get for 30 to 40 mile-an-hour winds. Captain John Tracy has been driving the boat for 31 years, and he says it rarely stops running.
Usually once or twice a winter, a couple trips here, a couple trips there. The last big one was that blizzard of 2015, maybe?
While they didn't have successful work days, the Peaks residents were ready to get home to soak in the last hours of the snow day.
Hunker down by the Yodel wood stove and throw a couple of chunks of coal in it.
I feel like I want to go home and drink hot chocolate.
Is that what you're going to do for the
Gonna go home, drink hot chocolate, and play board games.
In Portland, Christina Rex, News Center, Maine.
And the captain says Casco Bay Lines rarely cancel a ferry ride, if ever, but if they do, you can find out on their social media pages or sign up for their text alerts.
All right, now we are checking in with Keith Carson. He's live in Rockport for us, where it's very dark and windy. Keith, what's the latest?
Otherwise, a lovely night, though, Lindsay. You know, I think that the wind gust speed is remaining the same, and I'm wondering if we can't get the wind gusts over 60 miles an hour in the next 45 minutes or so if we're going to be able to do it, which of course isn't such a bad thing for everyone. It will reduce power outages, but it feels like we're in the right position in the storm right now, in the right location, exposed, that if we're going to get to 60 plus, it's going to be here, and it's going to be relatively shortly as the storm continues to move over the Gulf of Maine. It may have reached its peak down to the south of us and getting a little bit what we call stacked up in the Gulf right now. As far as snowfall amounts here, it's really hard to tell, of course, because of the blowing and drifting, but I don't think we have all that much snow from this storm. We've been in a massive dry slot area for a while, and it's not until the storm rotates off to the east and we get the back end of this that we'll get back into some snow. But it's basically been since about 2:30 or 3 that we've had almost no snow falling, very light stuff, and it's been all wind, all ground blizzard, pushing this snow all over the place. Other places, though, obviously getting crushed still with that snow. The story here, no question, will continue to be the winds and how it makes it feel nasty outside. You know, Todd, I haven't really got a chance to hear some of the reports coming out of the western areas, but I got to imagine we're 10 plus in spots at this point.
Yeah, we are. There's a 12-inch amount. Hollis just hit a foot, Keith. Keith's got that stance down, and it's deceptive because he's so sturdy in it. It doesn't give you the
He's
right.
He's got a low center of gravity, though, too.
That's true.
He's good.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't say it, Carson. I didn't say it. It's your buddy Goldberg over there. It's your buddy Goldberg.
He's up for
There it is. It helps. That's all.
Really funny.
Oh my gosh.
Quickly, just look at this storm from the satellite perspective. This is the brand new GOES 16 satellite. Carson's told you about it. They just put it up and it's operational now. And the definition on it is just incredible. And that's a powerful storm. I think I'm most impressed with this stat right here. The top 5 high tides in Portland, in the harbor. Well, today, that noon high tide was the 3rd highest since records have been kept. You got to go back to the blizzard of 78, that's number 1, and then the blizzard right before it in 78 was number 2. We had a high astro tide, we had a storm surge over 2 feet, and that equated to 13.8 feet that tide, and that's why we had all the problems. Now we're seeing the problems with snow, western and southern Maine. A little dry slot here in Bangor that's changing shortly, and there's still more action to the west. Again, the heaviest snow at the moment, Oxford Hills on up to Rumford. Snowfall rates 1, 2, even 3 inches per hour. There's the low in Bangor, but we're already getting some bursts again over Ellsworth. And amounts, because of these, these big bands and ones that don't exist, there's going to be some surprises, and there's going to be both on the high end and both on the low end. So that's kind of the thing as we move forward, looking at snowfall, amounts, and also that potential for power outages because of those wind gusts. Lindsay and Lee, let's get back to you.
Hi, Todd. Thank you. So it certainly seems fitting that today's storm hit on the 20th anniversary of the ice storm of 1998.
That's right. And that ice storm was the time that Sarah Burns, the former CEO of Central Maine Power, became president. I spoke with her before she retired during her last days in office.
2 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters, 2 older brothers, and 4 older sisters.
For those keeping score at home, Sarah Burns is one of 11. She grew up in Villanova, Pennsylvania.
We were told we were going to college, but going to college meant going away. That was part of the theory in our house.
She moved to Maine for college.
Actually, I had a sister who was at Bowdoin. She was in the first class of women at Bowdoin, and I did visit her. And I remember thinking, yeah, this is a nice place, but I'm not going to school with my sister, so Colby was the alternative.
1987 was the year Burns started working for Central Maine Power, to her surprise.
I actually got a rejection letter and said I wasn't qualified. And then 9 months later, I got a call when I was at Unum, and they asked me if I was still interested in that job that apparently I hadn't been qualified for.
In 1998, the year of the historic ice storm, she became president of CMP.
I was new in the job. A lot of people at this company would have said at that point in time, why did she get the job? One of the biggest parts of the job is storm, and she's never run a storm, and then here comes the biggest storm in our history.
At one point during this time, Burns, a three-sport varsity athlete in high school, heard something any athlete despises to hear: doubt.
One night, one of our own line workers, very loudly in the cafeteria, stood up and said, "We are never going to get this done." You know, I looked at him and I said, "Of course we're going to get this done. We're going to go back out tomorrow. We're going to pick up one more pole. We're going to set a pole. We're going to string wire. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it until we get it done." And I know we're going to get it done. Half of me wanted to laugh. The other half of me wanted to cry. But it was a real lesson in you have to stand up. You have to take ownership. You have to be the energy and optimism. You have to be the solution. And you have to say, "Hey, guys, we're on it. We're going to get it done."
She became chief executive officer in 2005. To Burns, being a woman in such a role is besides the point.
There's a lot of people who would tell you that I'm not the woman who's focused on women's issues and always talking about women's issues and pushing women's issues. I'm the woman focused on results, making sure this is a great company. It is. Making sure we have great employees. We do. We have extraordinary employees. And I've been trying to encourage growth of all of our employees.
After 30 years at Central Maine Power, it was time to retire.
I think everybody makes their own decision about when it's time to retire. I thought long and hard about this, had lots of discussions with my husband about this. It's just the right time for me. So the one thing that I reflect on as I'm looking at my retirement is I've worked with an extraordinary group of people. The people here at this company are passionate. They're energetic, they're hard workers, they care deeply for results.
And as for her get-it-done attitude, she says it came from growing up with all those siblings.
Well, you know, I think if you meet people who are from large families, and it depends if they're the older, the middle, or the younger, everybody has some opinion about it, but I've always said you're kind of a survivor. You got to stand up for yourself, and so I think you do learn some skills that are necessary when you lead a company.
So Lee, one of your kids could soon be a future CEO. And if we're being honest, who really wants to go out tonight, stay inside and reminisce on that ice storm of '98 with us? Frozen in Time, tonight at 7.
And now is back right after this. Another Mainer getting points for creativity. Somebody sent us this post on Facebook. It's posted by Scoot McMaster. I guess that is one way to get your shoveling done, but the standard way might be a little bit faster, but yeah. I like that.
There you go.
Nice.
And in Waterboro, the birds were getting prepped for the storm ahead. Christy Seagull sent us this video of turkeys roosting in her trees. The winds were too rough for the birds to take flight.
All right, that's it for us. News Center at 5:30 starts right now.